All right, everybody, this is my review of the Urban Drift Gobi S scooter. I purchased this on the Urban Drift website for $999. There's no tax and free shipping, and the shipping was relatively quick. I received my scooter in about 7 business days. So it's a pretty good scooter overall. I'm going to go ahead and do this video in kind of a breakdown segment and cover the specs, some things that you need to know before you ride or as you first start to ride, and some performance options that I have, and then also some accessories and modifications and overall ride and experience. I'm about 85 miles in on the scooter. For those of you that don't want to sit through the whole video, I'll tell you that this scooter is definitely a buy for the price. It's hard to find a full suspension swing arm style scooter with this kind of power and battery for this price. And so we'll go ahead and go through the specs to start with, tell you a little bit about the scooter just so you guys have an overview of what it is you'd be buying. So this is a two-wheel scooter with 10-inch off-road tires. It has 2 motors. It has a front and rear motor, and the motors are 800 watts each for a total of 1600 watts. It does have a maximum watts of 1600 per motor. So what that would mean is if you're riding and you're throttling the acceleration, it can, for a slow period of time or just for a small period of time, give you additional power. For instance, hill climbing is a situation where I've seen that occur, and the scooter does not seem to lack power whatsoever going up and down the hill. Another thing you'll notice about this scooter is it's got a fairly wide deck. It's about 22 inches long. It's about 8.5 inches wide, and it's got a nice rubber grip, which I prefer to sandpaper because it doesn't cut you up at all. And it's got fairly smooth sides on the side of the scooter versus some of the Nan Robot or other ones you'll see that have sharp metal edges. The swing arms. This is a single-sided swing arm scooter. I was a little bit concerned about purchasing a single-sided swing arm scooter for durability reasons. However, so far everything seems to be holding up pretty well, and you can see the width of that metal is pretty substantial on the scooter, so I'm not seeing any issues yet, and everything seems to be pretty well holding up with the swing arm and the wheel as far as that's concerned. I will say, as you can see from this side, those of you that have had a flat tire before, one of the benefits to the single-sided swing arm is you can easily pop that tire and replace the tube or the tire without having to actually remove the whole wheel. So from a maintenance standpoint, these single-sided swing arm scooters are a pretty good way to go for that reason. And here's the one on the front. The swing arms are on the opposite sides from each other on front to back, which kind of, I guess, maybe is a weight counterbalance on the scooter. You can also notice, looking at this, for this price point, there are hydraulic oil brakes. There are hydraulic disc brakes, which everybody says is better than the typical wire brakes, if you will. They work very well. I haven't had any issues, and the scooter stops relatively quickly. The wheels are held on by one bolt. It's a sizable bolt, and it's under this rubber grommet that you can peel off. It's just got contact cement on it. One of the things I want to talk about real quick is that if you buy this scooter, make sure you peel this off and check the tightness of your wheel bolts, because having a single swing arm scooter, what will happen is that's the only bolt that holds your wheel on your scooter. So if that loosens and you haven't tightened it, it could be very dangerous and a safety hazard. So do that on the front as well as on the back, and you shouldn't have any problems. Mine did loosen up on the front, but not the rear. So I took both of these off, tightening up very good with pretty good leverage from a wrench, and gave them a good tightness, and then re-glued the cover grommets on. These covers help protect the wire going into the motor, so that way if you bump something, it won't necessarily hit the wire. The other thing I want to talk about that did require some tuning in the beginning, other than tightening everything up, was these disc brakes. One of the downsides to the single-sided swing arm design is when you put weight on the top of the scooter, what's going to happen with the one arm, as you can imagine, the stress is on the bolt going into the wheel. So the positioning, if you can see that, of the actual rotor between the brake pads changes a little bit when a 200-pound person such as myself stands on the scooter, and it slightly takes the parallel nature of the rotor and turns it a little bit. So what I was noticing when I was riding the scooter at first was I would hear a little bit of rotor rubbing going down the road between the front and the rear, and for the life of me I couldn't adjust it to where I didn't hear that. But then I realized, well, I need to have somebody standing on the scooter while I make that adjustment because the positioning of that rotor changes ever so slightly. So once I figured that out and I got a buddy to help me out, I was able to make that adjustment, and no more rubbing of the rotor when I'm riding the scooter. So that's a good thing. A couple other things. I do believe it's a spring-loaded contained. This is a IP56, I believe, or 65, IP65 scooter. So you don't have to worry too much about water, but I still wouldn't ride it in the rain. The tires are pneumatic. They are off-road tires, but they're very quiet. I actually prefer these to the road tires because I do on-road and off-road. You got a headlight in the front, as well as two kind of running lights into the deck. Those are like kind of a white light, as are these. It's fairly bright. You know, I wish it was higher mounted, but it does light everything up pretty well, and I put another light on the top of the handlebar, so I have pretty good lighting on this scooter. The other thing that I'll mention is the stem. I'm a big fan of this stem versus like the Nan Robot where they screw, because I always worry about that coming loose. I've had that happen to me before. So there's actually three tension type bolts here that you pull back and you can tighten the tension on. So it's one of the first ones I've seen with three of these that actually hold the scooter stem in place fairly well. And when you're actually on it, you will notice very little movement when you see the stem. There's not a whole lot of wobble there. The other part of that is there is a stem bolt up underneath here, but you have to remove this fender, if you will, underneath here, and then you can access the stem bolt. I tightened that as well. Something everybody who buys a scooter should know, and I'm sure you know from buying other scooters, is you absolutely need to check every bolt that you can and every nut that you can on these scooters and give them a good tightening before you start riding, or actually even better within about the first 10 or 15 miles of riding, because things tend to loosen. Things that loosen a lot, there are some bolts. I don't know if you can see them underneath here. There's a silver bolt here, another one there. Those kind of help hold the suspension onto the base of the scooter. Those absolutely need to be removed and put some Loctite on those bolts and tighten those back up because of the vibration. Otherwise, you'll absolutely notice some play in both the front and the rear of the scooter. That did happen to me in the front after about 20-30 miles of riding, so I tightened those up. On the top, I've got some additions here, but what comes with the scooter I'll cover first. You got your Eco Turbo, you got your single dual motor, easily accessible. This is not a mini motors controller or anything like that, but it does have a nice rubber coating on it. It's a trigger squeeze controller. And what you've got here is you've got 3 gears. You've got 1, 2, and 3. And all that does is change your ability, your top speed. And then you've also got your mileage for the trip. You've got your total mileage. I've got about 87.7 miles on the odometer. What I really like is it has the voltmeter. You don't have to have a separate voltage display here. You can, when you ride, just leave that on and you can actually see the volts. I've got 58.8. It's fully charged because this is a 52 volt 20 amp battery. In my experience on the battery, I'm getting about, on single motor, about 27 to 30 miles of charge. And if you do dual motor, you know, it's going to be substantially less, maybe about 12 to 15 miles. What I typically do is I ride this scooter in single motor and then punch the double motor or dual motor when I need it. In single motor, it's your rear motor that operates, and dual motor, obviously, it's front and back, and the torque is fairly instant. You've also got some P-code settings in here. If you push and hold these two buttons down, you can enter the P-code settings and change things like electronic brake assists, miles to kilometers. Lots of different options there for how to set up your controller as far as throttle and low voltage, when the battery will cut off, things of that nature. It's not a folding handlebar. It's a standard bicycle type handlebar, which I actually prefer. One of the things that I did not like about this handle is that it did not have a locking mechanism on the stem to the back of the deck when you pick it up. However, what I did as a modification is I put a couple of zip ties and a fairly strong plastic clip, and it lines up fairly well with this first ring on the back, and when I bring it down, I just clip it in there and then I can actually bring it up. It's a heavy scooter. It's a 66-pound scooter, so any assistance you can get to lift this thing, like holding onto the stem, is helpful. On this side, before I get into accessories, you have a light button and a horn. Horn's pretty loud. You have a light button, so you can see it turns on the lights. There's the front lights. It's daytime, so they don't look that bright, but they do a pretty good job of lighting up on the road. And on the rear, you have safety lights. They're red, and they're fairly bright at night as well. One thing I don't like, and I've talked to the Urban Drift team about, is for whatever reason, these don't flash or turn brighter as a brake. So there are no brake lights on this scooter. You would have to add something to be able to get that, but I think I can overlook that. I do like the wiring's pretty well wound. I haven't had any issues in anything catching on the wiring. The overall suspension is a good balance between stiff and loose, if you will. It's a nice balance, particularly for my weight. It eats up road bumps quite well without any problems. Haven't had any issue with the ride. As far as speed goes, in single motor, this easily hits 25 to 28 miles an hour. And in dual motor, I've been noticing it will top out at about 35 to 37 miles an hour on flat roads without any wind or things like that you're going to hit into. The handle grips are pretty nice. They have these solid rubber grips. They're comfortable for your hands for long rides. And everything goes pretty well there. The overall build quality of the scooter, particularly for the price, is excellent. I can't tell you enough that the components here and what you see, is very, very good. It's not a real creaky scooter. I spent hours in the original, probably 20-30 miles of just making adjustments to things like the brakes, tightening of bolts, personalization of the scooter. But once you do all that, you'll find that it's a pretty darn good scooter and reliable for you. You've got a kickstand here. You've got really good ground clearance. If you want to, kind of go over a curb or come off a curb, I find that I don't have any issues whatsoever being able to clear that. It's just a nice looking scooter overall. You've got a charge port down here, and it's kind of your 3-pronged charge port. Comes with a 58.8 volt, I think 3 amp charger. It takes about 10 hours or so to fully charge it from like a low or empty battery, but I put it on the charger typically most nights. Now let's talk a little bit about the mods that I put on this scooter. First, I got my go bag, my poop today sticker, and it just kind of blocks in. I got some nice accessories here. Everything I bought on Amazon here. What I like about this is it kind of magnets in. So if you want to take it with you when you get where you go, you can just pop that off. This is a bike lock. It opens like a chain link. It's nice because it's more solid than some cable locks. And it's got a holder here on the front. And what I do is I just lock it through the back part of the scooter here to something, and it works pretty well. For my kiddo, she usually rides her own scooter, but sometimes she likes to ride with Dad. I got little baby bike handlebars she can hold on to. It's a plenty big enough deck for 2 people, and this scooter holds, I think, up to 300 or so pounds. So not a problem riding with somebody at a slow speed on the front. Cup holder, phone holder. What I did is I don't like to crowd my handlebar to where I'm blocking some of these buttons. So I bought a handlebar extender on Amazon. It cost about $12. And that way you can take some of your things and move them further up. And what's nice about that is when you drop the scooter down, your stuff isn't kind of hitting on this back here, so it's clear of that. This is a on full speaker. It's like $23 on Amazon. It's water resistant, 5 watts, about 10 hours of playtime. It's an excellent speaker. You definitely can hear it even on a windy, loud day. You partner that with your phone and your phone holder. This kind of grips your phone really good. You just slide it into the mount, tighten it on. It's not going anywhere. And then the key was I was taking my hand off of the steering wheel to kind of change the song or turn the volume down. I got this little Bluetooth remote. It lights up on Amazon as well, so I can keep my hand on the actual handlebar, both hands on the bar, while I'm turning and changing my music when I'm writing. So this was a really great addition for safety and convenience. I have a O-light here on the top. It's a 400 lumen light, USB-C charger. It just kind of hooks on there. You push it, turn it on. It's a very bright light, and it shows you color code on your battery charge, and that kind of gives a better lighting perspective. Between this and the lights that are in the deck and the headlight down below, no issues whatsoever being able to see anything at night. It's really good lighting at night. Couple of modifications that I did that I think maybe others would appreciate if you purchase a scooter. I've cut up my legs a lot on the sharp metal pieces of sides of decks with other scooters that I've owned. So what I did is I bought on Amazon again some rubber trim that goes up to about a 1/4 of an inch, can fit, and it slides on there. I used some contact cement and I just trimmed it down, and what I did is these were metal pieces and I covered them with these rubber, and they stick on there pretty good now with the contact cement. Another thing is these were metal crossbars, aluminum I think, crossbars painted red. They look cool, but what was happening was the top of the handlebar when it was down was scratching up on these. And then also you put your foot on here, metal on a rubber shoe doesn't grip as well as the rubber on the rubber. So I got like a marine grade heat shrink. I pulled these off and heat shrink them, and it's got a pretty good thick rubbery kind of cover on that as well. The other thing I did was the same thing. The only metal on the side that had any kind of toughness to it was this lip along the side above the tubing, the accent tubing, and I put the same type of metal trim, or excuse me, rubber trim along the side of this. So overall, looks great. Like I said, I'm about 85 miles in. Very much enjoying the scooter, getting good range, good speed, great climbing ability, off-road, you name it. Haven't done anything too drastic, but you know, grass, trails, hills, things like that. It's a pretty worthy scooter. You know, everything on here, the components are high quality. Once you get through the initial adjustments and tightening of everything on the brakes and the bolts and nuts, you know, this has been a very good scooter for me. So I hope you found this helpful. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments and I'll respond. Thank you guys.